May our Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with us. So, in the 4th year of King Jehoiakim, son of Josiah of Jehudah, this word came to Jeremiah from our Father in heaven. Get a scroll and write upon it all the words that I have spoken to you concerning Israel and Jehudah and all the nations from the time I first spoke to you in the days of Josiah to this day. Perhaps when the house of Jehudah hear of all the disasters I intend to bring upon them, they will turn back from their wicked ways, and I will pardon their iniquity and their sin. So Jeremiah called Baruch, son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote down in the scroll at Jeremiah's dictation all the words which our Father in heaven had spoken to him. Jeremiah instructed Baruch, I am in hiding. I cannot go to the house of our Father in heaven, but you go and read about the words of our Father in heaven from the scroll which you wrote at my dictation to all the people in the house of our Father in heaven on a fast day. Thus you will also be reading them to all the Judeans who come in from the towns. Perhaps their entreaty will be accepted by our Father in heaven if they turn back from their wicked ways. For great is the anger and wrath with which our Father in heaven has threatened this people. But Baruch, son of Neriah, did just as the prophet Jeremiah had instructed him about reading the words of our Father in heaven from the scroll in the house of our Father in heaven. And in the 9th month of the 5th year of King Jehoiakim, son of Josiah of Jehudah, all the people in Jerusalem and all the people coming from Jehudah proclaimed their fast before our Father in heaven. In Jerusalem, it was then that Baruch in the chamber of Gemariah, son of Shaphan, the scribe in the upper court, near the new gateway of the house of our Father in heaven, read the words of Jeremiah from the scroll to all the people in the house of our Father in heaven. Micaiah, son of Gemariah, son of Shaphan, heard all the words of our Father in heaven read from the scroll, and he went down to the king's palace to the chamber of the scribe. There he found all the officials in session: Elijah the scribe, Delaiah, son of Shemaiah, Elnathan, son of Achbor, Gemariah, son of Shaphan, Zedekiah, son of Hananiah, and all the other officials. And Micaiah told them all that he had heard as Baruch read from the scroll in the hearing of the people. Then all the officials sent Jehudi, son of Nethaniah, son of Shelemiah, son of Cushai, to say to Baruch, take that scroll from which you read to the people and come along. And Baruch took the scroll and came to them. They said, sit down and read it to us. And Baruch read it to them. When they heard all these words, they turned to each other in fear. And they said to Baruch, we must report all this to the king. And they questioned Baruch further, tell us how you wrote down all these words that he spoke. He answered them, he himself recited all those words to me, and I would write them down in the scroll in ink. The official said to Baruch, go into hiding, you and Jeremiah, let no man know where you are. And they went to the king in the court, after leaving the scroll in the chamber of the scribe of Elijah, and they reported all these matters to the king. The king sent Jehudi to get the scroll, and he fetched it. From the chamber of the scribe Elijah. Jehudi read it to the king and to all the officials who were in attendance on the king. Since it was the 9th month, the king was sitting in the winter house with the fire burning in the brazier before him, and every time Jehudi read 3 or 4 columns, the king would cut it up with the scribe's knife and throw it into the fire in the brazier until the entire scroll was consumed by the fire in the brazier. Yet the king and all the courtiers who heard all these words showed no fear and did not tear their garments. Moreover, Elnathan, Delaiah, and Gemariah begged the king not to burn the scroll, but he would not listen to them. The king ordered Jerahmeel, the king's son, and Sariah, son of Azareel, and Shelemiah, son of Abeded, to arrest the scribe Baruch and the prophet Jeremiah, but our Father in heaven hid them. The word of our Father in heaven came to Jeremiah after the king had burned the scroll containing the words that Baruch had written at Jeremiah's dictation. Get yourself another scroll and write upon it the same words that were in the first scroll that was burned by King Jehoiakim of Jehudah. And concerning King Jehoiakim of Jehudah, you shall say, thus said our Father in heaven, you burned that scroll, saying, how dare you write in it that the king of Babylon will come and destroy this land and cause man and beast to cease from it. Assuredly, thus said our Father in heaven concerning Jehoiakim of Jehudah, he shall not have any of his line sitting on the throne of David, and his own corpse shall be left exposed to the heat by day and the cold by night. And I will punish him and his offspring and his courtiers for their iniquity. I will bring on them and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem and on all the men of Jehudah all the disasters of which I have warned them, but they would not listen. So Jeremiah got another scroll and gave it to the scribe Baruch, son of Neriah, and at Jeremiah's dictation he wrote it in the whole text of the scroll that King Jehoiakim of Judah had burned. and more of the like was added. Zedekiah, son of Josiah, became king instead of Coniah, son of Jehoiakim, for King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon set him up as king over the land of Jehudah. Neither he nor his courtiers nor the people of the land gave heed to the words which our Father in heaven spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Yet King Zedekiah sent Jehoiakim, son of Shemaiah, and Zephaniah, son of the priest Maaseiah, to the prophet Jeremiah to say, please pray on our behalf to our Father in heaven, our Elohim. Jeremiah could still go in and out. Jeremiah could still go in and out among the people, for they had not yet put him in prison. The army of Pharaoh had sent out from Egypt, and when the Chaldeans who were besieging Jerusalem heard the report, they raised the siege of Jerusalem. Then the word of our Father in heaven came to the prophet Jeremiah. Thus said our Father in heaven, the Elohim of Israel, thus shall you say to the king of Jehudah, who sent you to me to inquire of me, the army of Pharaoh, which set out to help you, will return to its own land, to Mizraim. And the Chaldeans will come back and attack the city, and they will capture it and destroy it by fire. Thus said our Father in heaven, do not delude yourselves into thinking the Chaldeans will go away from us. They will not, even if you defeated the whole army of the Chaldeans that are fighting against you, and only wounded men were left lying in their tents, they would get up and burn that city down. When the army of the Chaldeans raised the siege of Jerusalem on account of the army of Pharaoh, Jeremiah was going to leave Jerusalem and go to the territory of Benjamin to share in some property there among the people. When he got to the Benjamin gate, there was a guard officer there named Arijah, son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah, and he arrested the prophet Jeremiah, saying, you are defecting to the Chaldeans. Jeremiah answered, that's a lie. I'm not defecting to the Chaldeans. But Arijah, when I listened to him, he arrested Jeremiah and brought him to the officials. The officials were furious with Jeremiah. They beat him up and put him into prison in the house of the scribe Jonathan, for it had been made into a jail. Thus Jeremiah came to the pit and the cells, and Jeremiah remained there a long time. Then King Zedekiah sent for him, and the king questioned him secretly in his palace. He asked, is there any word from our Father in heaven? There is. Jeremiah answered, and he continued, you will be delivered into the hands of the king of Babylon. And Jeremiah said to the king Zedekiah, what wrong have I done to you? What wrong have I done to you, to your courtiers, and to this people, that you have put me in jail? And where are those prophets of yours who prophesied to you that the king of Babylon would never move against you and against this land? Now please hear me, O master king, and grant my plea. Don't send me back to the house of the scribe of Jonathan. Don't send me back to the house of the scribe Jonathan to die there. So King Zedekiah gave instructions to lodge Jeremiah in the prison, compounded to supply him daily with a loaf of bread from the baker's street until all the bread in the city was gone. Jeremiah remained in the prison compound. Shephatiah, son of Matan, Gedaliah, son of Pashur, Jekol, son of Shelemiah, and Pashur, son of Malchiah, heard what Jeremiah was saying to the people that said, our Father in heaven, whoever remains in this city shall die by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence. But whoever surrenders to the Chaldeans shall live. She shall at least gain his life, and shall live. Thus said our Father in heaven, this city shall be delivered into the hands of the king of Babylon's army, and he shall capture it. And then the official said to the king, let that man be put to death, for he disheartens the soldiers and all the people who are left in this city by speaking such things to them. That man is not seeking the welfare of this people, but the harm. King Zedekiah replied, he is in your hands. The king cannot oppose you in anything. So they took Jeremiah and put him down in the pit of Malchiah, the king's son, which was in the prison compound. They left Jeremiah down by ropes. There was no water in the pit, only mud, and Jeremiah sank into the mud. Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, a eunuch who was in the king's palace, heard that they had put Jeremiah in the pit. The king was then sitting at the Benjamin gate. So Ebed-Melech left the king's palace and spoke to the king, O master king, those men have acted wickedly in all they did to the prophet Jeremiah. They had put him down and they had put him down in the pit to die there of hunger, for there was no more bread in the city. Then the king instructed Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, take with you 30 men from here and pull the prophet Jeremiah from the pit before he dies. So Ebed-Melech took the men with him and went to the king's palace to a place below the treasury. That they got worn cloths and rags, which they let down to Jeremiah in the pit by ropes. And Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, called to Jeremiah, put the worn cloths and rags under your armpits inside the ropes. Jeremiah did so, and they pulled Jeremiah up by the ropes and got him out of the pit. And Jeremiah remained in the prison compound. King Zedekiah sent for the prophet Jeremiah and had him brought to him at the third entrance of the house of our Father in heaven. And the king said to Jeremiah, I want to ask you something. Don't conceal anything from me. Jeremiah answered the king, if I tell you, you'll surely kill me. And if I give you advice, you won't listen to me. Thereupon King Zedekiah secretly promised Jeremiah on oath, as our Father in heaven lives, who has given us this life, I will will not put you to death, or leave you in the hands of those men who seek your life. Then Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, thus said our Father in heaven, the Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, if you surrender to the officers of the king of Babylon, your life will be spared, and the city will not be burned down. You and your household will live. But if you do not surrender to the officers of the king of Babylon, this city will be delivered into the hands of the Chaldeans, who will burn it down, and you will not escape from them. King Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, I am worried about the Judeans who have defected to the Chaldeans, that the Chaldeans might hand me over to them to abuse me. They will not hand you over. Jeremiah replied, listen to the voice of our Father in heaven, to what I tell you, that it may go well with you and your life be spared. For this is what our Father in heaven has shown me. If you refuse to surrender, all the women who are left in the palace of the king of Judah shall be brought out to the officers of the king of Babylon, and they shall say, the men who were your friends have seduced you and vanquished you. Now that your feet are sunk in the mire, they have turned their backs on you. They will bring out all your wives and children to the Chaldeans, and you yourself will not escape from them. You will be captured by the king of Babylon, and this city shall be burned down. Yep, trying to get it in. And this city shall be burned down. Zedekiah said to Jeremiah, don't let anyone know about this conversation, or you will die. If the officials should hear that I have spoken with you, and they should come and say to you, tell us what you said to the king, hide nothing from us, or we'll kill you. And what did the king say to you? Say to them, I was presenting my petition to the king, not to send me back to the house of Jonathan to die there. All the officials did come to Jeremiah to question him, and he replied to them just as the king had instructed him. So they stopped questioning him, for the conversation had not been overheard. Jeremiah remained in the prison compound until the day Jerusalem was captured. When Jerusalem was captured, says the clause, this clause would read what before. Okay, and in the 9th year of King Zedekiah of Jehudah, in the 10th month, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon moved against Jerusalem with his whole army, and they laid siege to it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, on the 9th day of the 4th month, the walls of the city were breached. All the officers of the king of Babylon entered and took up quarters at the middle gate, Nergal-Sarezer, Samgar, Nebo, Sarsachim, the Rab-Saris, Nergal-Sarezer, the Rab-Mag, and all the rest of the officers of the king of Babylon. When King Zedekiah of Jehudah saw them, he and all the soldiers fled. They left the city at night by way of the king's garden, through the gate between the double walls, and he set out toward the Arabah. But the Chaldean troops pursued them, and they overtook Zedekiah in the steps of Jericho. They captured him and brought him before King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon at Riblah in the region of Hamath. And he put him on trial. The king of Babylon had Zedekiah's children slaughtered at Riblah before his eyes. The king of Babylon had all the nobles of Jehudah slaughtered. Then the eyes of Zedekiah were put out, and he was chained in bronze fetters, that he might be brought to Babylon. The Chaldeans burned down the king's palace and the houses of the people by fire, and they tore down the walls of Jerusalem. The remnant of the people that was left in the city, and the defectors who had gone over to him, the remnant of the people that was left, were exiled by Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guards, to Babylon. But some of the poorest people who owned nothing were left in the land of Jehudah by Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guards, and they gave them vineyards and fields. At that time, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had given orders to Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guards, concerning Jeremiah, take him and look after him, do him no harm, but grant whatever he asks of you. So Nebuzaradan, the chief of the guards, and Nebuzaradan, the Rab-Saris, and Nergal-Sarezer, the Rab-Mag, and all the commanders of the king of Babylon sent and had Jeremiah brought from the prison compound. They committed him to the care of Jedaliah, son of Ahiakim, son of Shaphan, that he might be left at liberty in a house. So he dwelt among the people. The word of our Father in heaven had come to Jeremiah while he was still confined in the prison compound. Go and say to Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, thus said our Father in heaven of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, I am going to fulfill my words concerning this city for disaster, not for good, and they shall come true on that day in your presence, but I will save you on that day. Declares our Father in heaven, you shall not be delivered into the hands of the men you dread. I will rescue you, and you shall not fall by the sword. You shall escape with your life because you trust in me, declares our Father in heaven. All we got to do is trust in our Father in heaven. Let you always remember that. May our Father and the Son of the Holy Spirit be with us. I love you all. Peace and love. Amen.